I need advice. I met with people last year who have a student accommodation, 100 rooms, and they were struggling to fill it with students. We discussed that I would find students for them and we'll go 60-40 on the rental. However, now that I have found someone who can fill the rooms, they say we never agreed. Thank goodness for the PPA now, Bruno. This is why I'm such a fan. Now, then the client, then the client I found, we never spoke about how we are going to partner on the deal. Now they are using that against me. They are saying I made agreement with the owner of the building, not with them. They have signed partnerships for 10 years and they are hiding that for me. Can you assist? It sounds like it's a lease with, it's a sub-lease sort of thing, because it doesn't sound like the owner is this person. It sounds like there's another person.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around the question. So student accommodation, 100 rooms. It sounds like he was mandated to find tenants. And I assume this mandate came from the owner.
It sounds like from the tenant, because he says they are saying I made agreement with the owner of the building, not them. So it sounds like a tenant or a person that has the right to lease out these 100 rooms, so and they are then entitled to the rent.
Or a manager.
Yes.
He spoke to this person. They had an agreement, but now this person, this caretaker, is saying that the agreement wasn't actually with him, but he was possibly acting on behalf of the owner, so it's not his problem. Right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So look, there's a lot to get one's head around because there's different ways of looking at this. So, I mean, the simplest one is the fact that this is a leasing mandate. You were acting as an estate agent. Just because the caretaker wasn't the owner doesn't mean that he can't give you a mandate, because if he's authorized by the owner to act on behalf of the owner, he can mandate estate agents to find tenants. So that's allowable. You as an individual finding tenants, less so, because even under the previous act, the whole scope of leasing and being able to procure tenants, things like that, fell within the ambit of being an estate agent. So without a fidelity fund certificate, you wouldn't actually be able to enforce your right to commission. On top of that, a commission of 40% is remarkably high. So on a mandate perspective, you would really struggle to actually enforce this. But now I'm putting on a different hat, because I've seen clients approach it differently. So if I'm a property investor, I go look at properties and almost do a rent to rent. So Cilna mentioned sublease. I've seen a lot of guys like, okay, you know what? Tell you what, I'll enter into a lease agreement, but we're going to make it subject to me actually being able to fill the beds up. But it's still a sublease, so they will pay me X amount, 100%. I will then in turn pay you 60%. I keep 40%. It's not a mandate. It's not an estate agent. It can be drafted as a lease agreement because you're taking some level of responsibility for everything. So that's another way of looking at it. If that's the case, then yeah, there you'd have a better claim. You might be able to enforce it, unless it looks so fabricated that a court might consider it as a mandate and says, you know what, call it what you want to call it. You are acting as an estate agent. But we've got a lot of clients that do rent to rent. So they normally take on a bigger responsibility, and that's how they make their money. So building has 200 units. They go, I will take 100 off your hands, but I only want to pay 60% of the rental, but at least 60% guaranteed. Are you happy? And they go, absolutely. I'd rather have 60% than zero. And then you go out and find creative ways of getting from that 60 to 100. So right, two things. One's like a sublet, one is a mandate. So I think I kind of covered both of those. Then the client I found, we never spoke about how we were going to partner on the deal. So that's with the caretaker. Now they are using that against me. They are saying I made the agreement with the owner of the building, not them. They have signed partnerships for 10 years and are hiding that from me. Can you assist? So sorry, I don't know, Cilna, those last 3 lines.
I think you actually covered it, Bruno, because I think in your 2 scenarios, either you're acting on behalf of another person, meaning that you are a property practitioner, or under the Estate Agency Affairs Act, an estate agent, and without a Fidelity Fund certificate, you would not be entitled to your commission. I think that, but I think this whole thing of they are saying, but he contracted with the owner, I think you covered it, and I think the answer is simply, guys, this is why we always say, when you do joint venture agreements, when you do partnership agreements, when you act as an estate agent, have the right contracts, have the mandate, have your joint venture agreement, have your partnership agreement, have these things in writing, because otherwise we have to answer questions like this with a sad answer. Unfortunately, from where we're sitting, it might not look very good.
And I mean that's so I suppose that's the confusion. So I'm trying to place it into context. So very likely there was an owner of a building, and maybe they had JV'd, or they had a partner that was also trying to assist with the building, and this client or this viewer approached this partner, and there were conversations, and they're now saying, but the 2 of them entered into an agreement, but this partner is a 10-year like partnership, or whatever the case is. The problem that you're going to experience is exactly what Cilna says. So remember, earlier in the show we spoke about consensus and meeting of the minds. Whose minds exactly were being met here? Because a contract's not entered into, even if everyone thinks it's a great idea, and they're like 3 parties are going, sure, yeah, no, sounds good. The reality is you have to have the intention to be legally bound, right, for a contract to come into place. Having a conversation, speaking of an idea, somebody going, you know what, that would be great. If you found tenants for that guy, that probably sounds like a brilliant idea. I'm sure that you could actually split the rent or sublet or whatever the case is. But if he's not entitled to buying that guy, and you didn't have a conversation directly with that guy, it's a problem. So you need to, who represented that they had the authority to act? Who did you communicate with, even via email? Who was the person? How did they represent the authority? And if you've got enough to say, but they represent the authority in that instance, even if you're not entitled to a portion of the rent because the person actually collecting the rent never had an agreement with you, there is now a question of damages, because this person who misrepresented, who entered into this false agreement with you and caused you to do work and you get no pay for it, you'll be able to sue them for damages. But then you need to prove that they did something wrong and that they represented that they had the authority. If no one had the authority and no one represented that they did, it's going to be an uphill battle. He says, she says, oh, but when we spoke, you said this, and those trials never go down well.
No, and it's costly with low prospects of success.